What is up, New Life? Man, I love that intro video. Man, yeah, I want that turned on every time I walk in a room. It's just cool. Anyways, hi, you guys good? Man, I got 5 of you. That's all I need. Let's go. So today we are excited. We're excited because we're starting this new series, and we're talking about why do we do what we do here pertaining to the church, New Life Church. Why do we do what we do? Why all the things, right? And it's something that is really important because here's what happens. Church can be, it's real easy for it to become a machine, right? Something you do every week, and you do these certain things every single week, and then certain, whatever it is, there's these repetitions that happen, and it can become very mechanical. But the heart of it can never get lost, because if it does, then we might as well quit doing what we're doing, because the heart is the most important thing. Why do you do what you do? Why step out in faith? Why begin these journeys of discovering who you are and who Jesus is in your life and what that means to those around you in your world? Why begin any of that stuff if it's just about adding up to something, right? That's our heart, is always to keep giving you the why. Why do we do what we do? Because it is the most important thing, is to grow with each other. And today we're kicking it off is focusing on that. It's this primary reason for us to have this whole experience together, this gathering together, is so that we can grow spiritually, right? Grow spiritually. That's the biggest thing, is we don't want to remain infants in our faith. Paul talked about it over and over again. He would show these. Use this imagery of growing up, right? My pops, come here, pops. He wasn't been in the other services. So my pops here, right? We are two different sized humans, right?
Yes.
You guys can tell. We're like some reverse before and after or something. I don't know what it is. But so he always talks about when I was little, right? Where would I fit? When I was real little, when I was a baby, right? Right here, just fit right here in his arms. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to jump in his lap. I won't do it because it'll hurt him while we're here. But he'll be sitting there. Okay, you're dismissed. Get out of here. So my favorite thing to do is because he's become a little more cuddly in his older age, but he wasn't very cuddly, right? So he wasn't, and it was like, so what I would love to do is make it awkward, right? And the more awkward I made it, the more he would get a little red, and that head can get red. And so he would get a little more and more red, and then it would just make me like, oh man, we're going to do this more, right? Like, we're going to make this awkward. So that is an imagery, as silly as it is, of sometimes of what we can do in our souls when we don't grow in our faith. Right? It doesn't fit anymore, yet we keep going back to trying to do these things as we did as an infant. And we don't grow. And what happens is all of a sudden we can get really stuck in this idea that well, it's because I'm not doing this, or it's because I'm not doing that, or it's because maybe God, is really not coming through, or maybe it starts this game in our head because one simple thing is we haven't kept growing in our faith. We hadn't kept this drive inside of us to keep pressing forward and to keep stepping out in faith and do these little things that helps us. Because again, our heart isn't simply that you show up, you have a great time, that you hear about some Jesus, and that you leave here. That'd be great, right? But that falls so short to our heart here. Because our heart is that you come and you become completely dependent on God. Not on this church, not anything else, on God. But here's the funny thing. You can't do that alone between just you and God. This is not an isolated religion at all. This is solely and 100% based around the community being the community. The church of Jesus being the church. Right? So that's our heart, and that's what we want to talk about today. Paul talks about this idea of growing up in the faith in Romans 8:29. He says, from the very beginning, God decided that those who came to him, and all along he knew who would, should become like his son. Let's look at Jesus. That's what we always do, right? We look at Jesus. When we need to know what to do, you look at Jesus. And when you look at Jesus, you realize one thing. He was submitted to the will of God all the way to death. there was this sense in him that even though it didn't make sense, and even though the world around him was shaken, even though everybody was deserting him, his spiritual growth was so deep and so completely dependent on God that when the time came for him to take these giant steps of faith that would impact all of humanity, he did so without hesitation. Now again, the storms are going to come in your life, right? This is not a religion that says, hey, if you do all these things, all bad things go away. But what happens is there is a richness to your foundation, this unshakable foundation, that when you grow up in your faith and you're no longer this infant, that you can withstand anything this world throws at you. But it only comes from growing up in our faith. And the way that we do this is by leaning on each other. Right? The Bible talks about iron sharpens iron. It talks about that we are supposed to be this strand that is built together that can withstand so much more than just an individual can. We are the body of Christ, and we're meant to be there for each other. 1 Thessalonians 5:11, encourage each other and build each other up. That's what we're meant to do. So turn to your neighbor and say, I need you. Now turn to your second choice neighbor and say, they're needy. No, I'm just kidding. So, we want to encourage each other and we want to build each other up. So how do we do that? So that we can all grow up spiritually? Well, the first thing in your outline is by affirming each other's worth. Affirming each other's worth. See, everybody is looking for affirmation in one way or another. We can pretend that we don't, but we do. It's in our nature to look for this sense of affirmation, this sense of worth, right? You can just kind of look around social media and all the stuff that goes on. Like, it's so funny because it's such a fake, not fake in the sense of the people are fake, but it's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a false narrative, right? Like, it doesn't really have the affirmation. It just gives you like a quick fix of affirmation. But Jesus never wants to give you quick fixes, right? Jesus wants to heal you from the inside out so that it's no longer about the quick fixes and the Band-Aids, that it's a true sense of self-worth, right? And we do that by affirming each other, by being there for each other. One of the ways we do that is with acceptance. Romans 15:7. Accept one another just as Christ accepted you. So instead of, snubbing and belittling and getting on to each other and having this superior feeling about yourself, that we learn to accept each other, which isn't always approval, right? This week, what's this week? Election week, right? Maybe we have some differences in opinions in this room. Maybe. Sarcasm, guys. We have way differences of opinions in this room right now. Within a 10-foot circle, there is somebody who disagrees with you, okay? We can have this true sense of acceptance without approving of what other person's opinions or thoughts or values are. Why? Because all of those have a shelf life. But you are a child of God, and you are a child of God, and each and every one of us are children of God. And when we can see that in each other's eyes, there is a deep sense of acceptance that has nothing to do with whether or not you agree with each other. Because if you're looking for a group of people that only agree with you, eventually you're going to wind up being the only person. Because you have your own things, right? So, it has to be more than that. We have a lot of people here that are like type A, love to be on time for everything, right? It is an important thing to them, a value. Come on, let me see your hand. If you're, yeah. Look how fast they raise their hand. Look at them. That's how on time they want to be, right? They're just like, yeah, me. I love to be on time, right? Then there's those of us that maybe live on our own clock that nobody else owns, right? Yep, that's us, right? We tend to rub against each other, right? Like there's this friction that happens because of this thing. For instance, this service starts at 12 o'clock. Some of you come to the 12:15 service every single week. That first song kicks in, this room will be half empty. All of a sudden, by the end of the third song, the lights come back on, you look around, you're like, where did all these people come from, right? This can cause a little bit of a rub where we don't accept each other, but God wants us to see past those things, those opinions, those values. Listen, be you. and be driven through your conviction, 100%, because that is the Spirit of God talking to you, telling you what are those things that are keeping you from a life of fulfillment, 100%. But don't feel obligated to throw that conviction on the people around you, because what is going to happen is you are going to start having people live up to a standard that you can't even live up to yourself. What does that cause? Isolation, and that is the very opposite of what God is calling his church to be. Not isolated, but united, right? Another way we can affirm each other is with attention. Attention. Sometimes we need a little attention, right? Galatians 6:10 gives special attention to those who are in the family of believers. This is such a huge benefit of being a part of the church, being a part of this family, is that you get attention when things are going on. You're not, again, I'm not talking about like immature attention, like everybody look at me, right? Like you suck in the energy from the room. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about this idea that you were noticed, right? That you there is value in your life because you're noticed. There's attention that comes your way. And whatever you put attention to tends to grow, right? Whether it's a garden, whether it's a child, whether it's a relationship, your finances. If you put special attention into something, it tends to grow. Why? Because you're giving it attention. And there's you can see little things happening long before they turn into big things and whatever else it is. So they tend to grow. So if we want to grow, we got to give each other attention. The next thing that you can affirm each other with is with affection. Affection. Studies have shown time and time again that infants, they grow up and they develop so much healthier and better when there is contact as a little child. When they're loved on, when they're doted on, when they have this, it truly helps them develop. But even as adults, UCLA did a study where the average adult needs 8 to 10 human contacts a day to live a fulfilling life. 8 to 10, high fives, fist bumps, hugs, whatever else that it is. Some of you barely, just do the hot side hug, that's fine too. Whatever it is that you're comfortable with, the idea is that there needs to be this affection. We tend to be professional huggers around here. Again, like I said, I don't know. I make it awkward sometimes. I don't mean to. But I'm kind of a grizzly bear kind of person. So I love to hug. But here's one of the biggest reasons, and my pops taught me this as we were growing up, is because sometimes that hug on a Sunday morning might be the only human contact these certain people have had in a long time. It's not just a thing that we do. It is literally, this is the idea of somebody being seen and then being held as you are so valuable. I love you. I know you. And you may not know them, but it's the idea of we are in this together. And there's something so beautiful about that. You know what my favorite thing, though, is when a bro hug goes wrong? Right? You ever seen a bro hug go wrong? It's my favorite thing. That happens around here because, you come in, the bro hug, right? Hand, bring it in, 3 pats, right? 3 pats. That's the bro hug. What happens when a bro hug goes wrong because somebody's really wanting, this is what I tend to do, right? I go in for a hug. I'm like, oh, man, what's up? And then they go in for the half, and so now we're hugging, and their arm is stuck in between. So you know what I do? I just go, just embrace it, buddy. It's cool. It's fine. So, but the bro hug going wrong is one of my favorite things. It's hilarious. But the point of it is this, really. Romans 12:10. Love one another with brotherly affection as members of one family. We are in the family of God, and we got to remember, again, all the opinions and differences and all that stuff. It's great, but we are a part of one family. One God, right? In Ephesians, Paul talks about it, and he says that it is one God in all, with all, through all. We have one salvation. It is Jesus Christ. That is it. That is our common thing that brings us all together. Look around this room. I mean, there's no way that we could claim this as a family, right? At all. We are all different. Everything. There's just different people all across the room. Why are we all united? Has nothing to do with this building, has nothing to do with the programs. Those are all blessings to this family. But we are family because of God and Jesus Christ alone. Amen? And the last way you can affirm each other is through appreciation. Again, this is one of those things where you're really raising value in somebody's life. You appreciate them. Maybe they didn't even do anything necessarily to be appreciated for. But when you show them a love, affection, and you appreciate them, not for any other reason than being on this planet, being alive, being somebody who God has placed his image in. There's something really special about that. And when they begin to feel that, they begin to walk with a confidence that has nothing to do with their circumstances, but it has everything to do with this idea that we are all children of God. That's what we can do for one another. 1 Thessalonians 5:12 says, brothers and sisters, appreciate those who work hard among you, who lead you in the Lord and teach you. So, we build each other up. We grow spiritually by affirming each other, right? But then we also do this by encouraging each other's commitment. Encouraging each other's commitment. 1 Timothy 4:7 says, keep yourself in training for a godly life. This is Paul writing to his spiritual son Timothy. And he says, keep yourself in training. Understand that God is always preparing you for something way beyond what your eyes can even see now. Trusting that. And so when you begin to train this way, you have to do it with other people. Has anybody ever tried to physically train their body? Right? Obviously, I do. I haven't been in the gym about 7 years, give or take. But my wife, on the other hand, she loves it. She loves going. We got this wonderful couple in our church that run a gym, and she loves going there because there's this encouragement that happens. There's this holding to what God has placed on her heart, right? This isn't their goals for her. This is something that God has placed in her heart that she wants to do, and now they're helping hold her to that. Not in like a, mean or bully kind of way, but just encouraging. Come on, you remember what God said to you. This is what you want to change in your life. These are the differences you want to see, blah, 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 right? And now you can help each other and you can grow in that. You have to have that support. It's the same way with your spiritual growth as it is with your physical growth. You got to have the support because I promise you, just like I did 7 years ago, you're going to show up with good intentions at the gym, right? Then something happens and you talk yourself out of it, and then before you blink, it's been 6 months and you haven't gone, right? Am I the only one that does that? No? Okay. But spiritually, you can do the same thing. You can blink and 6 months have gone by and you're dealing with the same stuff that you were dealing with 6 months ago because you haven't moved beyond it. You haven't worked through it because you didn't have somebody in your life that goes, hey man, how's it going today? Hey sis, what's going on in your world? How's that growth going? How's that changes going? Whatever it is. That is such a huge part and a benefit of being a part of this thing. And such a huge part of why we do what we do. We have these spiritual growth tracks, these commitments that we try to help you on, right? These are not guaranteed ABC to add up to something, but what they are is these tangible tools that help you grow and help you stay on this track of discovering who you are and discovering the gifts that God has for you. Go ahead and put that thing up. So the first thing is saying yes to Jesus, right? You're never going to be a part of a weekend where at the end of the service, we don't give an invitation to pray, to accept Jesus into your life. Why? Because that is the most vital thing of anything else you're going to do. Is saying, I'm not God, you are God, right? That's the first thing to anything, is stop pretending you're God, stop trying to say that, whatever, you can't control what is uncontrollable. That's the first step. Jesus, you showed me everything. So you start with that. Then the water baptism, that's like putting the ring on, right? Oh man, my wife's going to kill me. I don't have my ring on. I just noticed that. Don't you owe me? No, I'm just kidding. So anyways, but it's that water baptism, that's like putting your ring on. That's saying, I have given my life to this person, Jesus Christ. I am in, right? We did that last week, and it was so beautiful. My gosh, 51 people being baptized last week. It was wonderful. If you haven't got baptized, get baptized. Literally every week, we are able and willing to do it. See that big old giant box over there with the hot water in it? Baptisms, that's what it's there for. We can do it at any time. Baptism. The Connect class, my wife was just teaching Connect 1 this week. Connect 1 falls on week 1 of the month. Connect 2, week 2 of the month. Connect 3, blah, 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 right? 4 weeks. There's 4 classes. If there's a 5th week, we don't make up a 5th class. We just take that week off, all right? And then we start back up on week 1. These are all tools for you, benefits for you to take these next steps. And then we can hold each other accountable, and we can say, man, what's going on in your world? How's it going? What did you discover about yourself in Connect 3 or Connect 4? What are the things that God is saying to you? This is what winds up happening. Our daily Bible reading. They also, if you like to listen, my wife, every morning I wake up and I hear Brian Harden, his daily audio Bible every single week. How many uses the daily audio Bible? Yeah, quite a few of you. If you haven't, it's an awesome tool. But getting those scriptures in your head every day and in your heart, serving in a ministry, there's just hundreds and hundreds of ways to serve at New Life. All throughout the week, here on the weekends, there's hundreds of ways, but you have to take those next steps. And of course, the last part is this giving aspect. Living a life of generosity. When you know that God has given you everything, that you only exist because he breathed life into you, that every experience that you could experience, both good and bad, is because he spoke you into existence, there is something that makes you walk with gratitude, right? It's just like, God, it's not mine. You live open-handed. And when something's taken from you, man, you're just wondering what God is going to do in return, right? There's just this sense that happens. But that's all the spiritual growth things that God is calling us to, and these are the tools that we use here, that you guys can help each other, hold accountable, and really just encourage each other to these commitments. So, the next thing in your outline, we can encourage each other and grow by praying for each other's growth. By praying for each other's growth. Colossians 4:12, I love this name, Epaphras. Yeah, go ahead, say it. It feels good. Epaphras. Yeah. Epaphras always prays for you that you will grow to be spiritually mature. Notice what it's saying. Epaphras is always praying. What does always mean? Always. This dude apparently is just praying all the time for this church. And he is praying for what? Your growth, your spiritual growth, that you will become more and more mature, less of an infant in your faith and more of this vibrant, growing human that God is calling you to be. Prayer is one of the most important things. It really is. It's one of the most important things. It's so easily overlooked, but it's the most important thing that we can do in each other's lives. One of my favorite things is in between services to look around and see these little pockets of people praying for each other. It's so beautiful and it's so simple. It really is. People are so terrified to pray for each other. Man, I terrified. I talk to people all the time. They're like, no, I don't pray out loud. And I'm like, man, you're missing out on life. Being able to just speak blessings over somebody, to just say, God, we don't know what to do. It's all yours. And I hope that this person finds happiness. And I hope, just keeping it simple. I love seeing what happens across this room. And it's not pastors praying for people. Of course pastors do. But it's just people who are not called to full-time ministry, people who are not, and they're just praying because, why? Because they're a child of God, and you get that privilege anytime you want. And so when you do that together, it really, really brings encouragement to each other. This Wednesday night, our first Wednesday, it's so awesome. I love our Wednesday night service. We do it once a month, and it's called the first Wednesday because it's the first Wednesday of the month. We're very creative in that way. But first Wednesday service, right? Every month, it's all of our campuses coming together, and we pray for each other. We worship with each other. My pops brings a word, and it's such a beautiful time for all of the church, all of us, the New Life that calls New Life home, to come and be a part of it. Please, 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 do me a favor. Put it on your calendar right now. I'm not going to get offended if you bring your phone out right now. Put it in your calendar, because I promise you, if you show up here, God is going to speak things in your soul, and you're going to be so encouraged by the people that show up here as well. So that's Wednesday night. And then, of course, it's our commitment to these weekend services. Again, it's not about, please, 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 this is my disclaimer. This is never about shaming you into coming to church, ever, okay? Again, if you don't want to come to church every weekend, you don't come to church. But I promise you the benefit of doing it, where it's not just a fix, or it's not just something that kind of entertains our souls and makes us feel good in a moment. When you actually are participating, and it's far more about going and seeing the family, and all of a sudden the church doesn't just simply become this one-time thing on Sunday morning, which is, going to, empower you for the rest of the week. It will do that, but it becomes far more of a celebration of what God has been doing throughout the week. Right? See the difference? That it's not just this one-time thing about, God, please help me in this week. I don't know what else to do. Those moments happen. But it becomes far more about this idea of you have participated in being the church all throughout the week. And now we come together and we celebrate. Now we come together and we grow together. Now we come back and we talk about what God is doing, what's going on. And it becomes so much more than just this shot of adrenaline to help you through the next part of the week. Does that make sense? It's really important that this is a part of what you do. And again, with our online services, it is such a beautiful tool. But please hear me, that was never meant to be a substitution for showing up. Because what's going to happen is this, that is meant, if you're sick or if you're out of town or whatever's going on, there's something that you can't be here, it's a great way to stay connected. There's people that I know that don't have a church in a small rural area where they go, but yet they can join us online, right? Beautiful tool. But that was never meant to be a substitution for you showing up. Why? Because you are cutting off the hands of Jesus trying to help you in your world. Why? Because part of the equation of finding wholeness is being in the community of believers. Not just watching it, not just being entertained by it, but participating in it, being in there. When 2 or 3 are gathered, his presence becomes palpable, and it's so much more enriching. Man, we just don't ever want you guys to miss out on being a part of the church. It is such a huge thing, such a huge thing. And it's such a huge part of why we do what we do here. Hebrews 10 says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds," right? We're helping each other out. "Not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." So making a fresh commitment to be here, to be a part of the church, not just when you need it, because it's not always about what you need. We need you. You need us, we need you. And we are less than when you're not here. We want you here to be a part of us. Romans 15:5, "May God develop maturity in you so that you get along with each other as well as Jesus gets along with us." Aren't you glad that Jesus likes us? All right. And then the last one in your outline is, how do we encourage each other and build each other up? By admitting our own mistakes. Getting raw. Vulnerable. But when you begin to admit your own mistakes, God does amazing stuff. Really, like crazy amazing stuff. Ephesians 4:25, "Tell each other the truth because we all belong to each other." We all belong to each other. Telling the truth about yourself is terrifying the first 100 times you do it. It is. It's terrifying. There's something so vulnerable about it. There's this idea that I don't know. I know for me, the church is the easiest place to hide yourself, right? Come walking in, fighting, cussing with your wife, and the kids are being jerks, and they're not listening to you, and then you walk in, and you're like, "God bless you, brother. May peace be with you." Right? Yeah. No, we all do that, I promise. It's part of life. It's part of life. And don't get me wrong, this is never a wag of the finger. We all do this. But man, and here's the other thing too, and I mean, I am saying this in jest a little bit, but like, you can't be best friends with everybody in this room, right? It's silly. It's a great goal, I guess, but it's going to be exhausting and you're never going to do it. But to have this circle of people that you were with, that there is no wasted energy on you trying to protect the facade that you have been putting up, right? There's no wasted energy. There's no sense of like, who is this person today, you know? There's a true sense of you being seen and appreciated and loved, not because you've earned it or achieved it or anything else, but because you are present. That simple. See, what happens that God does when we become vulnerable, become open, this is all God wants from you, is to be completely dependent on Him and not in your brand, not in your facade, not in the entertainment value of what you bring to anything other than you are completely dependent on Him. You know what that means? That means that you understand that you are appreciated, that you are valued, that you are chosen, not because of what you bring, but because you exist. That's it. Because God created you, you have value. And that's what Jesus Christ showed us hanging on the cross. He wants us to live completely open and vulnerable, because what it does is it tears down the walls in this place. It says, look at my scars. Right? You compare scars. Comparing scars is cool. Look at that one I got right there. That's a doozy. Right? It's comparing scars. It's this idea. We're in it. And when you get nicked up, now you got your brothers and sisters to pull you up. And you know what? They trust you, that you're not in it for any other reason than just to be there for them, because they've seen your scars. Right? Like, how often, man, I promise you, it's scary to be vulnerable with people you don't trust. It's terrifying. But man, when you trust each other, because it's like, it's not about us, it's about what God is doing through us. It's about Jesus Christ and what He did on the cross. When that's the case, when that's the only reason, man, all of a sudden fellowship happens. That's what I love about this verse in 1 John. If we live in the light, then we have fellowship with one another. Because we're no longer hiding in the shadows. We're no longer causing isolation. We're no longer causing this distance between us. Because we're like, listen, I'm broke, you're broke, we're all broke, right? We all fall short of the glory of God. Each and every one of us. I love what Paul, man, I love it. I remember the first time I read it, I was like, man, Paul's hard on himself. But he says, what a wretched man I am. What a wretched man. That is, put it in context, because what does he follow it up with? But glory be to Jesus Christ. But glory be to Jesus Christ, because it has nothing to do with me or my mistakes. What a wretched man I am. But this ain't about me. This is about us. This is about God doing something in our lives that we cannot do on our own. All these things are beautiful. All the things of enriching your life and bettering yourself and growing up and becoming more productive and all that stuff. Yes, God wants you to do the most you can with what you've been given. Man, God also wants you to understand that has nothing to do with your value. And we help each other by being vulnerable, by saying, like, man, we're in this together. James 5:6, admit your faults. Admit your faults to one another and pray for each other so that you may be healed. Man, that's scary. I know it is. Confessing sins or mistakes or brokenness out loud. Man, that's why the things that we do, the life groups that we have here, everything it's all geared so that we can be in relationship with one another and be vulnerable and honest. Proverbs 28, anyone who refuses to admit his mistakes can never be successful. But if he confesses and forsakes them, he gets another chance. Man, and God is the God of second chances, and third chances, and 48 chances, and 158,000 chances, right? Confess it and move on. God does not want you to sit there and beat yourself up or fake it. And then James 4:10, when you bow down before the Lord and admit your dependence on Him, God will lift you up and honor you. The Bible's really clear. God resists the proud. If you think you got it all together, you do you, but you are going to missing out on the God of the universe, the power that sustains all life. That's what you're missing out on. But it also says that God gives grace to the humble, that God moves, that He uses you. It's spectacular what God does when we get out of the way and stop pretending to be God. Our heart is this. The why behind everything we do. Do we do it perfectly? Lord knows we don't. Man, you know why we're always making changes around here? Because we're not doing it great the first time, right? We just keep trying and we keep trying and we keep trying. But we keep trying and we keep doing all the things that we do, and we keep empowering people, and we keep trying new ministries or whatever else that we keep doing. Not because of anything other than this. We want you to experience the fullness of Christ. We want you to know just how deep and how wide the love of God is for you. That nothing in all of creation can separate you from the love of God. And then once you get to know that, guess what? The people around you are going to get to know that. And then when that happens to them, then all of a sudden it begins to spill out into our neighborhoods, into our schools. It's so contagious. Everything we do is so that you find your value. Everything. But none of it is possible unless we do it together. God says, listen, you are my people. I have chosen you to be a lighthouse, to be this beacon of hope in a community that is so divided, in a community that is ridden with heartache, with death, with pain. Watch the evening news for 10 minutes and you're miserable. But yet you walk in here and what do you see? Grace, compassion, diversity, people from all walks of life trying to figure out how to do this thing together. It's spectacular. This is why we do what we do. And you, man, you're not just invited. Please hear the eagerness in our heart. You're called to be a part of this. You are not here by accident. I want us to pray together. You guys just bow your heads. And I know God is asking you to step beyond whatever that is. The next step. Again, none of this is all or nothing. All we want to do is encourage you to take these next steps into being the church, not just watching the church. You are valued. And so, Spirit of God, I pray right now that you will begin to just empower us and remind us that it's not about being perfect. It's not about the checklist of all this stuff. It's about just moving with this true sense of the way that you set forth, Jesus. This way of submission, of trust, of learning to die to ourselves and die to our right to be right, all for the sake of bringing unity where there is discord, to bringing hope where there is just devastation. You have called us, God. You, the divine, you call us by name. So empower us by your Spirit, Jesus. Whatever it is that God has placed on your heart right now. Maybe there's these things that God is placing on your heart. Maybe you've been trying to make changes, but you're trying to do it on your own. Whatever it is that is going on in your world that you keep running into the wall, I pray that the Spirit of God begins to pull you deeper into this truth that you are called to be in community, that you are called to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So God, thank you for speaking to us.